Chapter 106. The crime committed by the metahumans had caused a huge uproar in the country. When Lu Shu got back to class in the afternoon, he found that the entire class was discussing the incident. Normal students were asking if the Daoyuan students knew anything about the incident. But the Daoyuan students were clueless as well. Where could they find information about the incident? However, a majority of the people here had such tendencies. When faced with some questions, they would subconsciously ask those around them who were seemingly related to that topic. For example, even if Person A's friend was an orthopedic surgeon and Person A was going to go through a coronary artery bypass surgery, Person A would ask his orthopedic surgeon friend, how safe was a coronary artery bypass surgery? And ultimately, the orthopedic would give an ambiguous reply. How would he know? Person A would think, you're a doctor, how would you not know? So when the normal students asked the Daoyuan students about the incident last night, the final result was like the blind leading the blind. Everyone knew nothing. But the attention of Daoyuan students was drawn to the strength of the criminals. Everyone saw the video footage of the killer techniques used. Even their class form teacher, Chi Fei, was there. They didn't even know if there were Daoyuan class lessons today. Apparently, out of the 7 people who were injured or killed in the first wave, 5 were Daoyuan class form teachers. At this moment, everyone had a question they all wanted to ask. What if they were the ones up against the metahumans? Would they survive? This was a very real question. Today, the class form teachers dealt with the criminals. Once the students trained to a certain level, wouldn't they be the ones encountering all these battles? If not, what was the point of Daoyuan class distributing all the resources for training? Was it for them to train happily and peacefully until the day they retire? Definitely not. When the danger has not arrived, most people wouldn't think of it, as many people didn't have the mindset of being prepared in times of peace. When the danger arrives, some people would think of methods to evade it. Not everyone was brave enough to face impending danger to maintain the world's peace. The normal students at the side were worried about the issues of Daoyuan class. If Daoyuan class was forced to confront these dangerous problems, would you guys still be willing to be part of Daoyuan class? Lu Shu found that statement ridiculous, as if they could be part of Daoyuan class. This sort of hypothesis was illogical. Another person thought before saying, if I could choose, I wouldn't go. Are you dumb? What's the point of nurturing you? By then you wouldn't have a choice. Wouldn't we be like dogs? I'd rather have freedom. Your words are too nasty. A house-owned dog is many times more fortunate than a stray. At least there's food, water, and shelter. How would you know if a dog is happy or not? You're not a dog. Lu Shu laughed silently. How are you guys not dogs? Lonely dogs are still dogs. A few classmates swung their heads towards Lu Shu. They knew he was hurling insults at them. It was yet another huge wave of distress points. Everyone could only blame themselves for choosing to talk about this topic. Speaking of which, what's wrong with Lu Li? Why did he arm wrestle this guy to trigger his awakening? Can't even beat him in a fight now. Jiang Shui watched Lu Shu ridicule their classmates from his seat silently. He didn't have many opinions about that, as he knew Lu Shu wasn't particularly well liked in class, and even more so now. If it was him, it wouldn't be just words. He would probably be throwing tables at people. But he was rather curious. Don't you intend to be friends with anyone? This time, Jiang Shui noticed the biggest problem. It was as though this person was independent and did not intend to join any group. There was a huge distance no matter who he might interact with. He looked at Jiang Shui. Aren't we friends? This statement caught Jiang Shui off guard. And replied after thinking, I wasn't referring to me. I meant your relationship with other classmates. There always seems like a distance. Lu Shu snapped back. I feel that there should be some distance between people. Sometimes you might feel that you have a good friend, but you wouldn't know what he actually thinks of you behind your back. More distance means fewer problems, it's not like people can't live alone. That's why I feel that distance is good for everyone. Jiang Shui sat silently thinking about his words. Have you heard anything about last night's incident? Lu Shu asked softly. Jiang Shui had family members within the Heavenly Network, so he wanted to know if Jiang Shui had any insider information. Jiang Shui pondered for a moment and said, last night, a Class C practitioner suddenly appeared in Luocheng. He is really powerful and was responsible for hurting the criminal. The Heavenly Network is currently looking for him, but haven't had any clue. Lu Shu heaved a sigh of relief. No clue is good, no clue is good. And meanwhile, I don't even know when I can rise to Class C, Jiang Shui sighed, I'm so envious of all these powerful practitioners. Lu Shu was secretly happy. There was no need to be envious, he wasn't that strong anyway. Being complimented in person felt quite good. In the afternoon, every class form teacher informed the students to bring a chair to the square for a school-wide assembly. No one thought much about it as it was common to have assemblies in high school. Basically, there was at least one in every 2 months. It was normal to have many boring talks during assembly. They have all experienced too much of it. But some students enjoyed such events. These assemblies usually lasted 2 hours and everyone just sat at the square without doing much. There was no need to learn, and the students could chat freely and even sing. Today, however, felt different. In the past, there would be tables on the stage for speakers, but there was none today. On the stage instead was a fatty smiling at everyone. There was this feeling that this fatty was rather proud. Who is that? Have you guys seen him before? Nope. Once everyone was settled down, the fatty began speaking. He didn't even require a microphone and spoke with confidence with everyone hearing him clearly. Good afternoon, everyone. Today's assembly is to inform everyone that from today onwards, I'll be your new principal. At this moment, Lu Shu could sense the power in the fatty's body. It was like a huge fireball standing on the stage. That power resonated with the heaven and earth, and it felt as if a storm was brewing. He had only gotten this feeling from Li Xianyi and Nye Ting before. Who was this? Lu Shu was rather stunned, but he hid it well. Without Nye Ting and Li Xianyi's reference, he could not make out the exact class of this guy. Class B, definitely Class B. What Lu Shu missed out on was that the new principal was actually a heavenly king. Chapter 107. Aren't there just a few heavenly kings? Why did another one appear? Is it because of Li Xianyi? Lu Shu would have never thought that although Li Xianyi was one of the reasons, he himself was the real cause of it. But that was expected as he had no idea that he was already Class C and even more, did not think that someone else was suspecting a major lineage of inheritance behind his power. Ancient capitals like Luocheng City having several passed-down legends was normal, and this was why Nye Ting agreed to let Li Yixiao come here. This wasn't the only case. Within a short time, more heavenly kings would be allocated to every important location as these locations would be directly related to the remains. Now that Lu Shu knew about the existence of a heavenly king in Luocheng, his only thought was to be more careful. Li Yixiao looked at the students below and continued, everyone. He stuttered. Of course, he lacked experience with public speaking as he had always been training and never been appointed as a role like a principal. Previously in the capital, although he held the title of Heavenly King, in reality, the whole Heavenly Network was run by Nye Ting and Shishua Jin. The rest were like generals without an army. The reason why Li Yixiao couldn't wait to get out of that place was the awkwardness. He had initially expressed his intention to work for them and to give his best until he took his last breath, but they still didn't really let him into the loop. It wasn't only him but all the heavenly kings who weren't originally part of the scheme. Li Yixiao understood that this concerned the country's stability and had no room for errors, but not everyone could. And even though he understood, this did not mean that he was happy with being a bomb hidden beneath the snow kind of existence. but Niating finally had a change in attitude towards the heavenly kings. But there were some who did not wish to be part of this, as there was nothing more important than training to them. Of course, there were some ambitious ones. Li Xianyi hesitated for a while. May everyone study hard. That's all. All the students were dumbfounded. This principal must be a fake. Everyone seriously doubted the validity of this, but after seeing the long faces of the ex-principal and the other teachers, who silently acknowledged it must be true. What an unreliable new principal Luocheng International School had gotten. Where did this fatty come from and what kind of background did he have? The ex-principal stood at the side expressionlessly. He was still worried about the students' enrollment rate into the next education level. What would happen to the school's reputations? Brag about how many managed to achieve Class E? That's nonsense. But all is good now, and there's no need to worry about this matter anymore, now that I've become the vice principal. But he did not lose his authority. The school's daily matters were still his responsibilities, and the only difference was that there's someone else above him now. As the saying went, one mountain cannot hide two tigers. This kind of situation was troubling, and there's a feeling his words would not hold the same value anymore. And to have such a poor-speaking principal, what nonsense. What's the most important aspect of any system? It's the organization. There was once a capable young man who went for an interview, but because he was unmarried, it gave the judges a sense of instability. To introduce a top predator like the Heavenly Network into a place that had always rejected the idea of individuality, who knew what was going to happen? Lu Shu was wondering how these rules-abiding people were going to get along with the Heavenly Network. Would there be conflicts? Maybe there a way of getting along? To be able to consider such an issue was impressive of a high school student, but the answer to that question was something he could never have guessed. All the students returned to class confused and was wondering what exactly happened. They had thought classes would be cancelled for the day, but in the end, the principal couldn't even speak a proper sentence. And the Daoyuan class students had it worse. At night, after everyone flashed their entry pass, the security guards notified all Daoyuan students to gather on the field where they noticed the principal standing there. Wearing bandages, Shifei started to organize the crowd, and their uniqueness started to show. All of them shouted attention. Face right. Li Xiaoyi waited for everyone to be silent. I'm sure everyone knows about the incident that took place last night in Luocheng. 3 metahumans from Azhou escaped into Luocheng after committing a crime, 1 Class D and 2 Class ES who have been killed. Everyone who read the Golden Foundation forums only knew that the issue was solved but didn't know about the 3 criminals' death. There were no videos of the aftermath, and there were only rumors about numerous gunshots being heard at the Longhai overpass. But the truth was revealed: the 3 criminals were dead. Li Yixiao continued, you may have seen the battle videos, and based on that, do you think you guys will survive exchanging blows with them? Everyone was still wondering why this principal was interfering with the Daoyuan class matters when this question dumbfounded them. That right, could they survive? Most likely not, as seeing that Shifei and the rest were wearing bandages. Let me introduce myself. I am Li Yixiao, and everyone here would be joining the Heavenly Network in the future, and I would be your direct superior. I'm a Heavenly King, Class B. Class B. All the students were shocked to find out that this unattractive fatty was actually a Class B expert. A smile developed at the corner of Li Yixiao's mouth. After tolerating for so long and thinking about what to say the whole afternoon, it was all for this moment. Lu Shu was secretly observing this Heavenly King from within the crowd and felt that he wasn't anything decent. I've taken up the role as your principal mainly because I am based here in Luocheng. The Heavenly Network did not impart everyone training methods and resources for no good reason, as there will be more cases of criminals, like last night. The commoners would need your protection, Li Yixiao laughed, so for your own safety, we have to prioritize your training. Of course, normal classes would still continue, but I've heard that many of you have stopped listening to those classes. That isn't right, and you will know what I mean soon. Lastly, A friendly advice to those who are rich to quickly buy a magical energy-rich location and those who aren't to think of another method. Don't bump into a metahuman criminal before you've accomplished anything, Li Xiao said while smiling. Chapter 108. The main takeaway from Li Xiao's words was that Daoyuan students would probably be allocated missions, perhaps like Shifei and company's responsibilities to facilitate future Daoyuan classes or to maintain peace. In other words, everyone would have a job. The shock brought by the Class B expert was huge, and comparing the two parties would be like heaven and earth. And Li Xiao was quite straightforward to directly remind everyone that they would be dealing with such metahumans in the future, and if their training progress was slow, they might lose their lives unknowingly. And even reminded the rich to quickly purchase magical lands. Previously, although the teachers had mentioned the importance of magical lands and everyone could tell from Jiang Shui the benefits of them, the purchase of magical lands was still done in discreet, but now, it was an open affair. If a Class B expert emphasized the importance of magical lands, then they must be important. Lu Shu glanced over at Jiang Shui's expression, and he was obviously aware of this new principle long before. Shifei was very rather dedicated to still teach while injured. This time, he finished teaching the Yogacarabhumi Sastra and started on the Outer Dharma Sutra, which seemed irrelevant to training, and was just a process of understanding. But at the end, Shifei told everyone, there was a suspicious character who seemed to be Class C, and this person's strength was able to crush a Class D strength type. His class might be even higher than that. Why I say that is because that Class D fugitive was in the middle of awakening a second time, which makes it harder to judge the true class of that person. Shifei continued, this person uses a sword, and his sword was made of black jade. His powers could even be materialized outside of his body to form an energy cloak that protects him. Do take note, if you happen to see this person anywhere, the first thing to do would be to call me. Also, do not engage him as you will definitely die, and having the numbers would not lessen the power gap. Everyone only just found out about this incident, and where did this expert come from? And why were Shifei and company paying so much attention to this person? Sword. This person is a sword expert. Furthermore, how cool is it for a practitioner to fight against a pure strength type? Who exactly is this expert? Lu Shu was feeling troubled as he realized the attention the Heavenly Network had on him. At night as classes ended, Jiang Shui asked, are you selling your future magical stones? I suggest not to, and better to use them for training. Lu Shu was glad. Nowadays, the demand for magical stones was skyrocketing, but Jiang Shui actually rejected them, which was also what Lu Shu wanted. I'm gonna use them for my training. I can't sell them anymore, or else it would raise suspicions. I can only wait for a better opportunity to do so. Reaching home, Lu Xiaoyu, who was watching television, said to Lu Shu, the 40K is placed under your bed. The two of them went separate ways in the afternoon. One went home while one went to school, and so the money was left in Lu Xiaoyu's care. Although the amount wasn't much, it would still come in handy in emergencies. The thing to do now would be to use these banknotes with consecutive serial numbers for daily expenditure. If not, using them to pay school fees would allow for the source to be tracked. But Lu Shu felt that even if someone found out, he could just say him and Lu Xiaoyu picked it up outside, and the location would be that place. The situation was so chaotic that no one could confirm if that was the truth, and those three fugitives did drop some during their escape. And who could ever imagine the kind of interaction an orphan in Daoyuan class would have with those fugitives? Who would know that Lu Xiaoyu looked through the memories of the fugitive? That would be too far-fetched. Okay, Lu Shu changed into his slippers as he suddenly realized that he did not receive any distress points from Li Xianyi. You didn't anger the old man today? That's good. The old man is kind towards us, so try not to agitate him. But this kind of thing wasn't fully preventable as Lu Xiaoyu was just a child. Even Lu Shu was frequently angered, so angering Li Xianyi would be normal. Lu Shu did not earn much distress points today and did not even went to sell the stinky tofu he drew from the lottery. He had gone digging for money in the morning, and in the afternoon, the situation with Li Yixiao happened. There was no progress that day. How could Lu Shu tolerate such a thing? Using a new ID, he found an opportunity on the Golden Foundation forum and posted quite a few comments which were instantly buried under new ones. *CK Lu Shu had always valued people as precious resources, but too many people wasn't a good thing. There were too many people commenting, and each post had a few 10,000 comments. The number of people who saw his comments was too small, and he only received 400 distress points. Laughing sarcastically, Lu Shu closed the Golden Foundation forum page. You guys have no idea the valuable life lesson you just missed. He thought for a moment and opened his class group chats, Luoqing class group chat and F9 class group chat. But looking through, there was nothing he had to talk about. Everyone was discussing magical lands. My dad said there are quite a few obvious magical lands in Luochang, and their prices are way inflated. Those landlords are not dumb. But there's no choice. Look at Jiang Shuyi and Lu Li's training speed. Their aptitudes were already high, and with an additional magical land, the gap between them and us would only grow. They are rich. I heard that there are 2 villas in the new area where, because the plants grew to be very unusual, the prices have already risen to 12 million. Have you heard about Class F7's Zhang Shuang? He has a Tier C aptitude, but after buying a magical land, his training speed rose to the same as a Tier B aptitude. Magical lands are really beneficial, but just too expensive. Most of the Daoyuan students had a decent financial background, but they're a small group that belonged to the extremely wealthy. One example was this Zhang Shuang. After his family bought a magical land, his training speed was on par with those of Tier B aptitudes. Basically, magical lands would improve your training. But the prices of magical lands had exceeded the acceptable amount, and how many people in Luochang could actually afford 10 to 20 million on a house? If the price in Luochang was as such, what about the city? Lu Shu grinned. Why is being expensive the flaw of magical lands? Isn't that your flaw? You guys are too poor. Chapter 109. Everyone suddenly became silent in the chat group. I'm sleeping, good night everyone. I'm sleeping too. Damn, what you said makes so much sense. How is being expensive a disadvantage of the magical land? It was a disadvantage to not be able to afford it. There was absolutely no way to refute. Being poor was the disadvantage. From Yuan Chaojuan's distress, plus 411. By this wave alone, Lu Shu amassed more than 4,000 distress points. This is great, everyone is being too generous. Tonight, there will be additional celestial fruits available for my training. Anyway, there was no need to get more tofu for tomorrow, the 4,000 odd points can all be used for celestial fruits. The originally lively chat group turned silent. Some people were thinking if the administrator could kick this guy out of the group. By now, Lu Shu's toxic tongue has already been a well-known fact. Whenever 2 people were chatting in class, they would stop every time Lu Shu walked by and only continue after he had left. It was really impossible to tolerate him. And at this moment, everyone was thinking. Through this incident, wasn't the power of that strength-based metahuman most shocking? Everyone had looked down on the strength-based metahumans, but it was one of them who had such devastating impact in a real-life battle. Only through that incident did they know that the physique of a strength-based metahuman was so powerful. They weren't as clumsy as initially thought, and instead, they were lively and agile. Wasn't Lu Shu a strength-based metahuman? Thinking here, everyone felt uneasy. Out of so many people, why did Lu Li have to arm wrestle this guy? Great, now he has awakened as a strength-based metahuman. But something to be relieved about was the fact that it would be even harder for metahumans to awaken multiple times. Or else even as time passed by, besides not being able to outtalk him, they wouldn't be able to defeat him in battle as well. But some people also thought about the possibility of this douche awakening again. They did not dare to think about it, the helplessness of life under the control of Demon King Lu Shu. But little did the students know that the Class C expert Shifei was talking about was actually Lu Shu. Tonight, the Heavenly Network imparted the second set of skills to the students who had completed one large cycle of training. Only 4 of them in Class F9 qualified for this. 3 of whom had Class B potential, including Lu Li and Jiang Shui. There was one more who had Class C potential but burst onto the scene all of a sudden. Only after school ended did the rest find out that this douche, who was extremely rich, purchased one of the best plots of magical land. In reality, his pace of training was slightly slower than Lu Li and the rest. Lu Li and the rest of the Class Bs had actually completed the first large cycle a few days ago, but the Heavenly Network only started imparting the skills now. The training name this time was called the Mysterious Senses Chapter, and while improving their foundations, they would start learning to harness their magical energy. This would take 36 small cycles, and during this period of time the metahuman's strength and power will increase greatly, and there could be an improvement of 2,700 pounds of additional strength. As Shifei announced this, Lu Shu felt that Lu Li had a very proud demeanor. Lu Shu had an idea what this douche was thinking in his head. At this time, those Class E practitioners who trained the yin-yang kinship of the 3 were far more powerful than those of Class F. This mitigated the possibility of a situation, highly skilled practitioners being suddenly overpowered by lowly metahumans who awaken. This all-round sort of skill had an advantage. It was strong all around, and there were no obvious weaknesses. This suited well with the Heavenly Network's characteristics. The Heavenly Network was responsible for stability, and what it required was all-round and skilled individuals. Which was why Li Xianyi said that the yin-yang kinship of the 3 was advantageous, especially when it reaches Class C. Together with being able to manipulate swords, it would be easy going up against Class C strength-based metahumans. In the world of martial arts, there was a well-known fact. Awakened metahumans were usually stronger than normal practitioners of the same class. After all, it was harder to just rely on awakening to improve one's skills. Of course, this was exclusive of the talented practitioners and those talented awakened metahumans who were gifted in training as well. This was also the reason why the Heavenly Network was willing to provide training resources for these awakened metahumans. Metahumans who could awaken and train simultaneously held advantages over others in most circumstances. On the aspect of speed, a genius like Jiang Shui, who had the potential as well as the resources such as magical land, could complete the entire Mysterious Matter chapter in 18 days. Coupled with the magical stones, his speed would probably be even faster. Although the higher the level of training, the harder it was to progress, Lu Shu felt that this sort of speed was already terrifying. But what about those families with powerful inherited abilities? If someone with Tier A aptitude had access to magical land, wouldn't he reach Class C or higher in no time at all? But people with Tier A aptitude weren't that common at all. In the entire Luochang, Chao Qingxi was the only person. Lu Shu swept through his income of distress points only to realize that there were many people who contributed to his income, including Li Yixiao and Shifei. Were this distress points from not being able to locate that Class C expert? He estimated that based on this alone, there were 800 points and it was still increasing. Lu Shu suddenly thought that if he could stay hidden and not be found, this might become a fixed income. Now, the number of celestial fruits required to light up the 4th star had increased to 40. The pace of improvement seemed much slower suddenly, causing Lu Shu some frustration. He had a burning desire for distress points from everyone in the world so that he could speed towards being a Class A and be stronger than others. To have a mentality of competing against the world was rather motivating and seemed like a good idea. Training was like sailing in the rough sea. The vast seas are humongous, and only through hard work can one finish a journey at a time. Lu Shu returned home at night to train patiently. The world was constantly evolving, and only through training could Lu Shu feel safe in this world. At this moment, his celestial energy was as illuminating and strong as a meteor shower, but no one could see it. The celestial energy within his body reverberated repeatedly, pulsating within his body, which was getting stronger with each passing day. At this moment, Lu Shu's body started glowing like a gem, and if there was someone beside him, he could probably see the celestial map within Lu Shu's body. The stars had a rhythm. At times, they were bright, and at others, they were dull. It was as if they were breathing together with the heavens and earth, and they could exist forever like the heavens and earth. And just next to Lu Shu, numerous dark objects were speeding towards the sleeping Lu Xiaoyu. She was sprawled on her bed, and her pillow drenched with her drool. Chapter 110. As per morning routine, Lu Shu went over to Li Xianyi's for his swordplay training and made food for Lu Xiaoyu before heading out to sell stinky tofu. Selling stinky tofu had become an easy task as the last serving was used as a sample for viewing and placed there. There was no need for a performance, and if anyone approached to ask, he would just say that the sample was not for sale, and this would generate distress points. After finished selling the stinky tofu and placing the sample there, he started messing around on the Golden Foundation forum. Commenting on every post he saw, he wasn't trying to cause distress, but to make his ID well known. Lu Shu felt that he should make his ID well known before he could begin his next plan. If not, once he posted a comment, it would be buried instantly. He felt that doing so wasn't a waste of time, but a slow and constant effort that would accumulate and one day reward him. There were new hot topics appearing on the forum every day, and even the incident about the metahuman criminals had become old news. No one was still interested in the number of casualties in the chase or how the three of them died. It was like a fast food era, everyone forgets fast. After magical lands had become a vital training resource, that had become the hottest topic right now. Everyone was discussing suspected magical lands in their own cities, which became very popular, and the landlords would wait out for the price to rise before selling. Within a short time, prices of magical lands had skyrocketed, which was discouraging to many. This was the market. When an item became popular, its price would follow suit until the trend died down and its price would be reasonably reconsidered. People on the forums would be talking about a magical land from this place being sold at this price to the CEO of so-and-so company, and that his two sons were both in Daoyuan class. There were also rumors that the two sons liked to use their status as a Daoyuan student to seduce female students. There were all kinds of gossips, and this was what's expected when everyone was gathered on one single platform. Posts on magical lands were mostly about which wealthy man bought something really pricey. Although this was very different from a normal life, everyone was still willing to discuss it. Lu Shu also saw an interesting post about a certain someone who bought a bunch of mutated plants and placed them at his doorsteps, to pose as a magical land so that he could sell for a high price. In the end, these mutated plants died as soon as they were placed there. There were really all kinds of people. Phone scams, fake advertisements, there were so many different ways and ideas about fake magical lands now. People these days. The mutated plants relied heavily on a magical energy concentrated surrounding, which led to people turning to mutated animals instead. This time, there were people who actually got scammed. After several such cases, another precautionary step had been added to the process of buying magical lands. Buyers would request to personally test out the place by carrying out their training to check for validity. As a result, property companies started hiring Daoyuan students to test for magical lands, and a new kind of job had emerged. Some of the smarter students who knew that they wouldn't be able to afford magical lands would shamelessly pretend to be interested in the magical land. They would then train there for a whole night and not purchase the house, all these just for training. This was the reason why humans made it to the top of all living things. Just as Lu Shu was still scrolling the forums, someone came over to buy stinky tofu. Boss, how much is one serving? This is not for sale, it's a sample. From Li Yixiao's distress, plus 21. Upon seeing this update, Lu Shu immediately looked up at the annoyed Li Yixiao who, while biting his gum, said, "I may be uneducated but you can't trick me. Since when did selling stinky tofu need a sample?" Lu Shu was frightened. Why is this guy here? Since when do heavenly kings come to such normal places? And don't the heavenly network have their own cafeteria? I'm kidding. Of course I'm selling, $5 per serving. Lu Shu immediately gave up his plan to earn distress points for that morning. Li Xiao smiled brightly as he took out money for the stinky tofu. As soon as he ate it, I heard that your stinky tofu is delicious, and they're right. It's the best I've ever tasted. You're really good. Lu Shu suddenly had chills down his spine. This guy better not be coming down here every day at this time to eat my sample stinky tofu. There was no way Lu Shu could reject a heavenly king's request. Even if he really did not sell, the other party might not say anything, but just in case. Lu Shu would not risk anything over this matter. Li Yixiao added. You look familiar. Have we met? This stunned Lu Shu. Since yesterday, they had only met twice and he was also standing in the middle of the rows of students. So how did he find him familiar? Lu Shu could only think of two possibilities. One was that he had a super memory that could remember everyone's faces after just one encounter, or two, it was because Li Xianyi was his neighbor and the heavenly network had researched information regarding him. Lu Shu was never naive enough to think that he could live beside Li Xianyi without others investigating him. I'm a Daoyuan student and we've met yesterday, Lu Shu replied. Li Yixiao's eyes lit up, so you're a Daoyuan student. That's great. Then could this stinky tofu be a treat for me? You can look for me if you have any problems in school. Lu Shu rolled his eyes. What kind of heavenly king would scrimp on a cheap serving of stinky tofu? In the end, Uncle Li couldn't stand it anymore. What is wrong with you? Xiao Shu here is an orphan and has to study and work at the same time. He even has a younger sister to feed, so how could you not pay for his stinky tofu? It was Li Yixiao's turn to be dumbfounded and speechless for a while before taking out a $100 bill. Sorry about that. This $100 is my compensation for not knowing about your situation. You still can look for me in school should you have problems. Lu Shu didn't decline his offer to provide assistance in school but returned him the $95 change. The stinky tofu costs $5, I don't want the excess.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.